Well, today is a pretty special day, Keeler. I'm not going to the dentist or the doctor.
No, we're going to Life Outdoors today, and as you can see by the hat, I think I already know what I want, but we're going to give all the bows a chance, and they carry everything you'd want. I already got my arrows with me, just because I have those from last year. They're the match grades, Easton, and Jeremie at Life Outdoors in Valdosta, Georgia is going to hook us up today, so we're looking forward to it. And what are you thinking?
Well, it's not every day that we go get new equipment, that's for sure. I'm kind of from the old school of if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And so, you know, it's usually maybe every few years that we consider upgrading our equipment. But today is the day. We talked with Jeremy a few weeks ago. We discussed a little bit about options of the type of equipment we thought we wanted to upgrade to, and we got some big trips coming up this fall, and just decided we wanted to try to tighten up our game a bit, see if we could get shooting just a little flatter. I think Keeler and I both over the last few years have really tried to up our game, sharpen our skills, and get a little more accurate at long range. And you know, we've done pretty well down here in the South over the years, and now up in the Heartland on that 20, 30, 40 yard shot. But start reaching out there, you know, shooting 60, 70, 80 yards, you know, the type of sight that we need to use, those sort of things. It's a little bit outside of our ordinary wheelhouse. So we're going in to talk to the experts today. There's nobody else better down here in our neck of the woods than these guys, Jeremy and his family at Life Outdoors. So we're going to show up this morning. We got an early appointment. I hope they're there and ready for us, and we're going to see what we can get figured out. I'm not sure that Keeler and I are going to be shooting the same type of equipment. We got to go in and evaluate it a little bit.
Yep.
See what works for each of us. You know, everybody's different on the type of broadheads they want to use, the weight of the arrow combinations, the specific style of the bow. So we'll see. And once we get it all done, we're gonna have a little shootout and just see who can get it done. All right,
Yes, sir.
We're here. All right,
It's time to get it done.
Came in from about an hour away, and we have arrived at Life Outdoors. Let's go get it.
After you.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
There's my buddy. Hey, buddy. What's up? Good morning. Good morning, sir. Yeah. So we came in the other day and you know, kind of scouted out all the different makes and models, and you know, pretty quick the Keeler came in and picked this one up and shot it a few times and just trying to get a feel for it, and decided that, you know, with the latest technology, he felt like the feel of it and based
Carbon's
on
it.
everything we learned that the carbon was the way to go for him. But I know that, you know, you guys carry, of course, you know, all the best major manufacturers, and you know, it's kind of Ford Chevrolet to some extent when you get into the Matthews and the Hoyt, but you know, they each have their different feels, and you know, whether it's the cam style or the way that it lines up to you. But Keeler's preference, of course, being the Hoyt here. Keeler, tell me what you talk to me a little bit about what you feel like, you know, makes this a better bow for you compared to some of the other models.
What you like about it?
Yeah, what you like about it.
Right, so
A lot of
for
it's
me,
personal preference, right?
Yeah, for me, it's more of the draw cycle. I like the Hoyt's draw cycle compared to the Matthews, just because it's more of it's steady throughout, and the Matthews kind of builds a little bit. Also with this one, you know, just from Hoyt to Hoyt, it was probably, you know, just the aluminum was a lot louder. And my last bow I had, I guess it was 5 years ago, Hoyt model. I think it was the Axios Alpha probably. It was just super loud. I had that problem all the time. I think I had like 6 monkey tails on it just to quiet it down. Immediately this one, it just didn't make a noise. And honestly, when I shot it the first time, it kind of scared me because it was like so fast and it was just like so quiet. It didn't feel like a rifle, I guess, for a better term, you know. But it's definitely a pretty bow, and I guess originally I shot the green one in this version, but y'all had this one in a box back there, and I think it's a red wire, right? or
Yes.
Redworks.
Redworks. Mhm.
Yep, and so it's kind of got those custom features that has the black limbs and the silver strings. So that's pretty cool for sure.
So what's neat about everything you're saying is that term best, this is the best bow gets thrown around a lot. How do you put that in a category? The
Right.
term best. So you're speaking in two different things at the same time. One of them is like hard facts, things we can test. You said how quiet
Right.
the bow is. We test that, you know what I mean? So you have manufacturers can tell you rated in decibels how quiet this bow is.
Right.
The other side of it is draw cycle and feel and looks. That's 100% you. And we want you to be super happy and excited about your bow because this is going to be your baby.
It is.
This is
It
going to be
is.
the deer slayer.
It is. I hate to leave the other one because with a buck, it's always made it count. I've never missed a buck with that one, and kind of sad I'm not going to use it, but I always have it. And just the technology that's come along is just too hard to deny. I think this one's rated for 20 to 40, if I'm not mistaken, over the Axios Alpha, FPS faster, and it's kind of hard to deny. And sometimes you gotta adapt, So
Faster and quieter is hard
Right.
to argue with, isn't it?
it is.
So we have on the wall everything from the aluminum bows to carbon bows, and all of them are, newer than what you had, right? By the sum of about 5
By
years.
far.
Yeah.
By far.
So anytime you talk any brand, it doesn't make any difference with these newer bows. 5 years technology is giant.
It's huge.
So we wanted you to shoot the aluminum bow because that's what you had. We wanted you to shoot the aluminum bow and the carbon bow. And I think the coolest part about that is you kind of had this preconceived thought, I'm going to like one.
Right.
And so we didn't necessarily 100% say that, right? But when you got towards the end of it, both of them had the same cycle, it's basically the same cam system, but one is without a doubt quieter and without a doubt faster.
Right.
So
No doubt.
that was the carbon bow that we went with this year.
That's one of your pre-set up, I guess.
That's correct.
The Torex.
It's called a Torex, and that would be that midline bow that Hoyt produces. It's a phenomenal bow. You can get out, the door, literally a third of what you would spend in, their higher end bows. But it's for somebody that's looking for something to get into the bow hunting world without just absolutely pushing a amount of money that we may be comfortable in doing. But there are people out
Sure.
there that just go, hey, I just
Well,
can't
you
spend that
think
much.
about even with us, you tend to work your way up, in that regard, and just like with Keeler and I.
Started with a Matthews Mission. It's just what my Uncle Hank was able to kind of give me, and I was able to
And
kind
that
of
was
break
somebody
it for
else's
myself.
bow.
Right, I was like a third-hand bow that I'd used, and it wasn't until I probably used that for 2 years, and then I kind of got to a point where I could, pull back the bigger bows, and it was just
Guard though.
got to a point where I could do that.
Talking about in the Torex, talking about that mission line.
Somebody here?
Hoyt has the Torex and the
Need to go to the
Mission in
restroom?
their midline, and then Matthews has the Mission stuff. And
Right.
that is produced basically off of 4 or 5 year old technology. So partially that is correct. They reintroduced it
Right.
as a 4 or 5 year old technology. So you don't have that price that comes along with research and development and staying on the top.
Right.
Yeah. So the Torex was produced to be a really good priced bow and performing in that 335 range. So still very fast.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool about coming in here too with you guys, Jeremy, that's a lot different than a lot of bow stores I've been to and all. And not only is this what y'all do, I mean, you can look around in here and see that, we're not selling chips and crackers. I mean, this is an archery store, but you've got such a selection in-house with each manufacturer, but even then with different price points, with beginners bows, with advanced bows, with hunting bows, with target bows, more than we could certainly talk about or show anybody here just today. But when Keeler came in, even though he looked at different manufacturers, different makes of bows, once he homed in on the Hoyt, he was able to grab a few different models and go back and actually shoot them, get them lined up enough to shoot them, get a feel for them and see what felt better to him. No doubt that in going and shooting a Hoyt versus a Matthews and different bows, you can feel a difference.
100% for sure.
And they each have maybe certain qualities that stand out a little more than the other. The Hoyt, for me, I know, growing up, at least specifically, a lot of the style of their cams, there was a little, a little smoother letdown. The pull point, and I guess you can describe that better than I can, but where the real draw or pull on it is, where it's hard at, that makes a difference for some people. Maybe depending on the strength of your shoulder, or just whether you like more of a steady pullback, or whether you like it to be real easy and then just have one kind of fast motion.
Sure.
And I don't know if in a hunting setting, just like when we went out elk hunting last year, I watched some people that would specifically sit there and want to be able to draw that bow back very slowly, in technique,
Sure.
versus some that wanted to be able to just go, like that. So I know everybody's different on what they like and the feel of it, but the technology has come so far. When I came in here 4 or 5 years ago, and you fitted me for the bow that I've been shooting, which has been an absolute killer, that Matthews,
Right.
the VXR.
That's correct.
VXR. I mean, never seen anything like it. I thought for sure I didn't need a new bow, because I had good bows. They had treated me well my whole life, and but the technology had come so far in just that 5-year period that when you put that particular Matthews in my hand, the speed and accuracy of that, it was like a heat-seeking missile. I just never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And now here we are. It's been 4, almost 5 years that I've been shooting that bow, and I've upgraded some stuff. We've improved certain aspects of it, whether it was the sights, whether it was the quietness, whether it was upgrading the balance of the arrows a little bit, things like that, to get more and more accurate.
Sure.
For my lifespan at 46 years old, I've been shooting a bow my whole life. I've just got to the point where I could stand out there and at 100 yards consistently
Wad 'em up.
feel like I could wad them up.
Sure.
And that's just I don't want to say a standard, because it's a high-end bow, but it's just a standard hunting setup. Other than the fact that, we got a little bit better illuminated pins and a dial that will allow you to get specific on your FPS and get it dialed in out to 100.
Yeah, but still a shorter stabilizer, no magnification.
But
Yeah.
I think axle to axle is probably only 29.5.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that was like when they called the 28 model, right? Something like that.
28.
But we went last year and shot in the tournament up there in Illinois with you guys, and I shot in the hunters class, and feel like I could do just as good as anybody else with that style of equipment.
Sure.
And now there's no doubt that the scopes and the magnifications and all play a huge role, especially in longer distances. But anyway, with all that said, Keeler, what did you feel like was the biggest difference in the bows that you shot in the Hoyt?
Right.
What was your feeling?
So I shot this bow just when we were trying to figure out what we wanted, and it wasn't anything special. I didn't put a peep sight on it. We just put a D-loop and a whisker biscuit on there, and shot pretty standard arrows, pretty standard setup. And I shot this, which was the
AX2.
Yep, the Alpha AX2. And then I shot next to it this one right here, which was the Carbon RX9. And just immediately, not only was there a silence difference, but there was also like I don't want to say it's a kicking difference. Maybe it's how I hold the bow, whatever else it is. But I shot
Aftershock
right. I
vibration.
shot this 3 times, and all 3 times it slapped me in the wrist. That one never had a problem with it, and shot it 3 times as well. Not to say this isn't an amazing bow.
But just right off the shelf.
Just right off the shelf, that was a better bow for me. And obviously there's a price difference there, and it just kind of depends how much you value that difference in performance, right? And one other thing is, this aluminum bow is always going to be cold at the touch. And I didn't really think about that as being a big deal until Jeremy had brought it up. But I mean, if you're walking the stand in 20-degree weather, and I mean, you're always holding this with your glove hand. I mean, I used to hold it by the string just so I didn't have to touch this thing the whole time I was hunting.
Think about that South Dakota trip we went on when it was
Oh,
down
it was
in the
freezing
teens the whole time.
It was freezing.
And literally, that's probably the first time that I've really thought about that I didn't want to have to hold that bow.
Right.
And
You
if
know when
if a deer or
yeah.
something came out and I was in a position where I needed to hold that bow, that was when I got the coldest, and I mean, literally felt pain was just from holding that bow and it being so cold. So you're right, I've never thought about that before.
The
But
carbon is always warm
that's
to the
a
touch,
factor.
and it's
hold
a
the
big
cold.
deal, you know.
It does, yeah.
Just the
And
minute
of course,
things.
there's so many different patterns, and again, most of that is personal preference as well in how you arrange them, and there's so many ways you can trick them out these days. But that's really cool that you can get, you can kind of pick out your favorite pattern too. We didn't used to really have all those options.
No.
You know?
Camouflage was camouflage, and it was a single color. Now
Right,
you've
right.
got all of these popular things. The throwback camouflages are incredibly popular. Probably the
Yeah.
biggest right now would be like the mossy oak in the older camouflages. Realtree has one also, but that mossy oak bottomlands is just, I mean, it's just taking over.
It's sweet. Yeah.
It's a
What-
big blocky looking camouflage. This is it here.
Right.
And that's a good looking bow.
It
It is.
But the one that Keeler liked is he liked that bourbon with the black limbs and
Right.
silver strings, and he
Yeah.
dressed that
It's
dude
pretty.
up like it's gonna be
It's
a
pretty.
dragster.
Sexy, sexy. Well, what would you say is the biggest difference between, you know, and again, I know you got a lot of different brands, but specifically today, you know, I feel like I'm likely to go with the Matthews. What is the biggest difference, would you say, between the Hoyt and the Matthews in the style of it? I know that a lot's changed in the last few years with the center point and how they align the sights and things like that.
For sure. So all of the major brands have done that in their own respective way.
Okay.
So Hoyt, instead of having a sight mounted to the side of it, which if you had a sight that wouldn't mount to the front of the pick rail, it actually still has the threaded holes in the side. So you could still
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
It's not utilizing the newest technology, which is moving all of that weight to the middle.
To the center.
So if you've got a sight to the right side, then you're going to need something on the opposite side of the bow to help
Counterbalance.
balance
And
that.
wouldn't you say that that's probably the biggest difference in the design of this bow to 2025 compared to, you know, a 2022, 2023 bow that Keeler and I might have had from, you know, 3 or 4 year old bow? Is that center line balancing?
That is the direction all of the companies are going. You know, whether it be not fighting itself, which is the idea of moving that
Right.
weight to the middle, and or also designing cams that are just going to be higher efficiency
More
rating.
compact.
So you can draw that bow back. It's still 70 pounds, right?
Right.
Whether you were shooting 70. This one does not feel anything like your older bow at
Well,
70
just like
pounds.
you
gonna draw
handed me
easier.
your bow, which was set on 80 pounds, and I pulled it back, and not just the hold, but just the pullback to me almost felt lighter than my 70-pound bow that I
Hear that?
thought. And at the time, a few years ago,
Sure.
when I got it, I thought, oh my gosh, this thing's like butter. You know,
Right.
it seemed so much easier.
And it was
It
in
was.
perspective
So
to
much
what you
easier
were
than my
shooting.
5 or 10 year old bow from that. So, but this one you're saying has 2 holes on the Hoyt,
Yep.
where you can actually have 2 different stabilizers.
So you can choose, like this is the one that comes on it from the factory stock.
Okay.
And you can choose to pull this off, add a longer stabilizer, run the two together. You could run, say, a camera on the top side, stabilizer on the bottom. You have options. So to have those options and to be
And
able
you
to
would probably
adjust
put
it
like
for
the
the feel,
Tacticam on the bottom, and then the larger stabilizer. No, you'd probably put the Tacticam up top.
top,
Right.
Okay, and then
just
the,
for access to the buttons and
uh-huh.
all.
And then just keep the smaller stabilizer on the lower.
Sure.
And probably my favorite part of the new ones, which I was really lacking in the older models, was the quick sticks.
Yes.
My dad,
Yeah.
you know, on the Matthews, he had the plastic removable ones
Love it.
that he can just set it on the ground while we're picking up arrows, and every single time I would have to sit mine on the ground, on the body, mess
Well,
up
and
the
just-
paint,
and
whatever
keep,
it is.
Keeping the cam out of the dirt.
Yeah.
That's right.
And stuff like that. Oh
Exactly.
man.
So this one finally does it, and Hoyt's
Priceless.
delivered on that. So that's what I'm probably most excited about, for sure.
Just being able to keep it up on a kickstand
Right,
out of
right.
the dirt.
Especially in a blind.
Compared
If
to
you're
the
sitting
old
in a
2-leg
blind.
where the cam was sitting on the dirt. On
Right.
Some of them, yeah.
Sure. So when you start talking about different brands, I'd say the biggest thing that you could say, and I think we do this very well. So when you offer Matthews, Hoyt, and Bowtech, and PSE, and all these different brands that are on the top of their game, every one
Right.
of them, when you have that in a shop and you have a shop owner that's not pushing one, then you get to go back there in the back and shoot them.
Right.
And you get to see what you were referencing earlier, like draw cycle, right? So draw cycle is something that is going to be to an individual.
Right.
So what you like, Keeler may not like,
Right.
right? And vice versa. So I'm not going to tell you what you're going to like. We're going to go back there in the range. We're going to say, you know, like, Justin, I'm thinking you're going to like these couple bows or 3 bows, and we're going to take those 3 and go back there and shoot them.
Right.
And then as an adult, we can make adult decisions. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely, yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing that we do well is trying not to put what I do and influence you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Because I mean, obviously, you know, through all your experience and working with all these different bows and seeing so many different shooters, you know, you've got your ideas about what might work best for certain people.
Sure.
But you know, for somebody to come in here and have the opportunity to try that all out for themselves and make their own decision is huge.
Sure. So at the end of the
And
day,
look, so many people these days, and we all do it,
Sure.
want to just order it offline. I figure out what I want. I look at the pictures, I read the reviews, and I'm ordered offline. But it's like buying a couch or a mattress. You can read about it all day, but until you lay on that mattress and sleep on it for a night, you don't really know.
Sure.
So same way with a bow. Now, like Keeler said, you can take one off the shelf and it might feel a little different to you. And you can always come back in and adjust that with counterweights and all the things to reduce that kicking or whatever else he's talking about, or change your grip a little bit to make sure it's not going to hit the inside of your arm. But there's no doubt that certain models just fit people better than others.
Absolutely.
Right?
It needs to be an extension of yourself.
Yeah, and exactly what you're going to do with it, right? The mission. Do you want the longer caliper bow because that feels better, or just specifically because you really are going to be doing more target or long range shooting, and you want that slight better accuracy that you might get with a long bow, right?
That's right. So when you first start selecting a bow, like Keeler was talking about, he started with the mission stuff, and like we were mentioning, the Torx. Those are very highly adjustable bows that you can set up today, and then if he grows 4 inches, we can make those fit.
Right.
The bows that we're selecting now are at the very top end of their performance value.
Right.
So it's in a whole different caliber, but it has to fit you, right? It has to be, it needs to feel like an extension of yourself.
Right.
So when you draw it back, it's more like pointing your finger, not aiming something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Well, it's like, I grew up shooting bows, but more than anything, I grew up shooting shotguns and stuff like that, right? And that's the biggest thing I tell people. When people get out there, is you don't want to have to overthink it. In the moment of truth, there's so much going on, and you want to be able to just point at that thing, and right where you're looking and where you're pointing is where that thing should hit. It's like throwing a football. Should be an athletic move. You shouldn't have to think about it a whole lot. And I think that in trying to get real precise, sometimes you can get over analytical, and really at the end of the day, if that thing's lined up right, you've practiced enough, it should be like muscle memory.
Sure.
When the moment of truth comes, there shouldn't be a whole lot to think about.
Sure.
Right.
So we are lining up sights and doing things of that nature. We're not shooting traditional, but like your point is if you're overthinking it, we're probably the best at messing stuff up out there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we can overthink anything.
Oh yeah, and there's so much out there today, more than it used to be on the internet and YouTube videos, and everybody's got different opinions, and some of the traditional things that I learned growing up about archery. And set points and all that, and some people that are really good at what they do are saying the exact opposite today. Oh, set points don't matter, this, that, and the other. And maybe for some it doesn't. It's kind of like in sports. It's like golf. Some are more athletic than others. Some can get away with a big hip slide and hit it right where they want to go each time, and some have to stay stable. But let's focus on the equipment. Let Keeler get rigged out here, and I appreciate you taking the time this morning to walk us through each step. We want to understand it better. We've never been really on the detailed side of the setup of the bow, and we're very fortunate. We've had somebody like you guys to basically go in and just help us take care of it for us and make sure we were lined up, which we'll continue to do. But we want to get a better understanding of that setup. So we're excited to get to learn a little more about it here with you today.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah. So what would you move into next? Like you said, looking at accessories and that sort of thing if he's going with that carbon model.
So just start at the base. I'd say the most important accessory out there is going to be the air rest, because if it's not functioning, everything else is junk. Right. So, but that's been a rest, or the rest that we choose to put on them is built by Ultra Rest, and it is just phenomenal. They've upgraded those, so now the actual prongs are metal, so it's not plastic any longer. So y'all hunt in some pretty cold temperatures. Right. So if it gets sub-zero, plastic becomes brittle, correct? So we don't want that. You don't want to be walking to the woods and getting there to realize your rest is broke because you caught it on a vine. Right. So the new rests are all aluminum. They're actually quieter, but it mounts too in both the major brands. Well, actually, there's 3 or 4 brands now that utilize this. So that's got a dovetail back that's actually mounted into that carbon. So it will mount directly to the back. So once again, that idea of bringing it all the way to the center. Right. So instead of having that rest mounted to the side, adding a little bit more weight to that one side, sights on the same side, quivers on that same side. So you might have to put a bar on the other to compensate for that. Right. So we're moving everything to the middle. So it's just going to make everything cleaner. Like you were talking about laying your bow down, there's less to catch on things, It's just going to be a neat setup. I think you're going to really enjoy that. So we're going to go rest first, and then we'll move up the bow, and we'll do sight next, and then we'll talk stabilizer and quiver.
Okay.
So,
perfect.
get it all put together. But
All right.
what takes me the most time to do is set up that rest. So we've got to start
Get
that
started with that.
pre-tuning method,
Great.
get everything squared up, 30, 45 minutes per bow type deal.
Okay.
And then everything else is just snap, snap, snap. And, so Justin, we think you're probably going to go with the Matthews, correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, I shot a few of the others, and I think it's probably just more of what I'm used to. I mean, of course, the Matthews is
Sure.
a great bow, but at the end of the day, I could keep hunting very well with what I got.
Absolutely.
And but I based on the type of hunting that we're doing, not only lightening it up just a little bit with the amount that I'm carrying the bow, doing more spot and stalk versus just traditional hunting in a stand, but also trying to reduce my number of pins to simplify. Look, I'm not getting any younger. We talked about eyesight, and without a scope or something like that built into it, or magnifier, I think reducing the number of pins, shooting a little bit flatter, being able to draw.
That's 10 foot a second faster than what you were used to.
And being able to draw 80 with about the same amount of inertia. If I can, it's one thing to draw a bow back standing up and doing that.
That's right.
But to be able to do it sitting down or, on one knee or whatever like that, if I can do that very comfortably with 80 pounds, and like you said, be throwing, I don't know what we'll end up at, but I think
if you go 80 pounds and you were at 70, you're talking about gaining another 15. So we're
Right.
20, 25 feet a second faster.
right. I mean, I'm shooting fast with what I've got now, but I think with everything loaded up, it rated right out at like 289 or 290, somewhere right in there, which is great.
We're now over 3.
Right, and I think that'll make a tremendous, especially going out elk hunting where you might even be throwing something through the bushes, a little bit heavier fixed broadhead. You need that extra power.
Sure.
You really do, and so I'm excited about it. I really am.
So let me tell you about one feature about this that we may not have talked about already. So this is a switch weight mod, and I think you're really going to like that.
Okay.
So what that's going to give you the ability to do is they make these in 5-pound increments from 55 pounds all the way to 80.
Wow.
So the same bow that you're purchasing today, if you want to hunt turkeys, you're probably not going to shoot 80 pounds on turkey, right?
Sure,
I mean, it's
sure.
a bird. So you'll be able to take this exact same bow on your countertop, kitchen table at the house and adjust those without me having to oversee that. It doesn't require a bow press, super simple.
That's amazing.
And you'll be able to take an 80-pound bow down to 50 pounds with nothing but swapping of mods.
That's
You're going to
cool.
love that.
Yeah.
Also, you shooting targets like you were talking about in Illinois when y'all went and shot last year. 80 pounds over 300 feet a second would not be legal for that. So instead of having to adjust limbs, you can just swap those mods in and out, and you get that bow 100% in specs. It's easier for you to draw, easier to hold. It's going to be more accurate for the target purposes. But for hunting, I agree with the 80 and 70, 75.
Right.
Whatever you can comfortably draw, that's what you should
Right,
shoot.
absolutely. You can kill them just as dead with a 50-pound draw or whatever it may be. But one of the biggest challenges I've always had once you get into a little bit of distance, the biggest miss generally would be yardage.
That's right.
If
right.
you really practice up and you're a pretty good shot. Don't get me wrong, we can miss a chip shot, but generally speaking, if you're shooting true, it's gauging that yardage. So to be able to reduce that error ratio a little bit, that can make a huge difference.
So out of
Sure.
all the colors that they now produce, what do you think your favorite is?
Well, we were looking at some of the flat colors.
Right.
We were looking at some of the patterns, and it's really cool to kind of get something matchy to some extent because I've never had that opportunity. We were looking at like the Sitka patterns or different things.
That's right.
And you can really dress and doll up some of the more flat, colors with strings and things like that. I'm really not as much into that. I think for me, I like the old traditional. Of all the options that you have, I think I like, just the bottom land, something that's just kind of got the dark shadows and
Sure.
has got a kind of a mold of some grays and greens and blacks in there that will just kind of melt in with any environment, that I'm in. Again, for me, this is specifically a tool, not a jewel. I mean, it is a very pretty bow.
Sure.
But I'm looking to kill this thing.
That's right.
So I think
It needs
for
to be
me,
functional first.
yeah, now it could absolutely be black or just a darker color, but I think, all else being equal, I
So
think
in
I like
reality,
it.
this year, the solid colors I think are outselling all things.
I can see that.
That doesn't even really
Yeah.
matter what brand.
Well, I think you can customize them a little more, right?
Sure.
You can put your own flavor to them versus, something like this is gonna look, I wouldn't say more generic, but, more ordinary from a standpoint
That's right.
of just having a camo bow. I think the last one that I have, that VXR, is just kind of a traditional, breakup pattern. But everywhere that I've hunted, it's been good enough in
Sure.
doing just that, breaking up the pattern a little bit,
Sure.
not standing out like a sore thumb. So I think this will do the job. Now, we looked at and I've shot some of the longer bows and had a feel for those, and I think, for purposes of what I'm doing, being mobile, climbing up in lock-ons and trying to be in blinds where you don't have much space, especially if you're sitting in a chair and trying to get up on
sure.
one knee. And I don't think this is going to be my turkey bow, as you suggested, but I think between, whitetail and then stalking mule deer and elk, I think the shorter bow, based on what I'm doing, should be accurate enough for me
Absolutely.
to be able to get it done. So
Yeah, when you're talking restrictive space, whether it be ground blind or stalking or, any type of terrain that's going to restrict the length of the bow, you have to think about that.
Sure.
Right? So it can
well,
be a
and
problem.
this will be my
instead
first
of-
bridge lock. The biggest difference between this one and the bow that I have, to me, is that center line, and I'm excited about that. I've always felt like, especially traveling, when you get everything on your bow, and not only is it heavier, more components,
That's right.
but just the fact that everything's kind of offset, it just seems to me like there'd be a whole lot greater chance that something's going to get twisted or torqued or broke.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited
So
about
Matthews, the way they do their bridge lock, is it runs through the riser like a dovetail.
Right.
And then it compresses on there. So it will actually repeat zero. So the Picatinny rail, the Hoyt does repeat zero also, but it's on the front of the riser.
that. Right.
Just done a little different way, but still the same idea of technology, running every bit of the weight to the middle. So they do the rest on the back of the riser. It's actually machined into the back of this riser.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's go through the accessories, right? And
Absolutely. So that's one of the biggest things that we see in the accessory to mount up and the new technology is, we've been in business now 25 plus years, and every year we hear people say, well, they can't get any better. And they keep finding new ways to do that.
yeah,
And
it's amazing. It really is amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, like I said, I'm from the old school of how could you make it any better? How could you kill them any better? But, every time I come in here, especially if you give it a few year gap, it's amazing how much better the technology gets. It never ceases to amaze me.
So I would say year to year, you're going to see a gain, right?
Right.
But it may not be enough for you to purchase a bow.
Right.
5 years, it's like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Sure. And you get age on your your equipment, and even if you maintain it and things like that, you get some fatigue.
Sure.
But okay, cool. Now, is there a difference in the rest? Is there a reason why you use one versus another, or you're pretty much just looking at the drop away style,
So
right? Compared to,
almost everybody in today's time are shooting dropaways for hunting purposes.
and that's what we've used most recently.
Yes. So and specifically this brand. So the two that you have on your bows are also Ultra Rest, but they were more like that one. So you see how that U piece right there is plastic. So they now upgraded that, and this whole piece now
It's a
is
higher quality
aluminum.
piece.
So the biggest thing with that is like plastic or polycarbonates. When it gets cold, sub-zero specifically, it will become brittle. So if you were carrying it to the woods or climbing a tree and it gets hooked on a wait a minute vine or a greenbrier or something like that, it may rip that rest off, break it because it's plastic and it's gotten brittle.
Right.
Aluminum doesn't do that. So it would take really extreme temperatures for it to change, and we're talking about like dry ice extreme.
But
we're not doing that. If
even-
you're hunting in
even
that, you're a
then-
better man than
No,
me.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And even though it's the fall away style, with it being aluminum, it still has like a felt liner or
have
something
felt,
there on the inside.
So in the new ones, they're actually die cut for that exact position. So it's not like you're just taking a block of felt and slapping it on there. It's not going to have any gaps in the felt. It sits on there. It's designed to sit in that spot. So we don't have issues with them falling off anymore or getting water underneath it. It just doesn't happen.
Okay, we need to probably check it once we set it up, but mine was right at, I think it was 28 and a half.
Yeah, I think his is a little bit
Right
shorter
away.
than mine because I have the different release.
Right,
Right.
yeah, and we can check it, but I'm pretty sure mine was 28 and a half, somewhere right in there, but I'll let you look at it to make sure, because I know, the wheelhouse is a little different on that one, but I'm gonna do, like you said, a full new air setup and all for this bow. I've got a full quiver and then some on my older bow that's set up and tuned and working perfect for it. But we left that stuff up at the lodge in Illinois this time, just so we don't have to do as much of carrying them bows back and forth every
Sure.
time we go, loading up all that equipment.
Oh, yeah. Bow cases take up a ton of room.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just that. Every time I go, especially if we fly or something, I feel like even with the great cases we have, you're taking a chance there.
Getting bumped and
getting
all.
them bumped.
Yeah.
His got bent a little bit of time or two, even in our nicest
The
cases.
sight did, yeah.
So what size peeps? You want to just do? I think we did quarters, which is what I shoot
We did.
for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Say with the same thing.
I think
so.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll start on this one. What we're doing right now is getting the bow set up so that they call tune, right? So to get the arrow to fly as proper as we can possibly get it out of the bow. And then secondary setup, like you were talking about different portions of that, we're going to set peep height, which is to you as an individual, right? So if we set Keeler up a bow and then we set you up a bow, that peep height might not be the same. Have y'all tried to shoot each other's bows?
I have shot Keelers, and he shot mine a few times, and
Have
it
you
is
seen it
different.
different? Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I was
yeah,
asking.
sure.
We definitely have to use the same releases for the bow. Like I've tried with that, and I can't even see the peep sight where I'm at with my release. If I use his, it works.
Yep, so when you're sitting there shooting, because of facial features, right? So facial features, you were just mentioning releases. That's that linkage going from where you're holding the bow to where it's going to touch your face. Because of all those changes, this bow will literally be set up for you as an individual. So through today, that's what we're doing and we're going to achieve here today. And this thing will be sighted in, knocking tacks off of the nails in a second. So that's going to be awesome, right? So, but we want it to be something that, like I say, is an extension of yourself. But the biggest part, and I think this is one of the things that we talk about quite regular, is I want to take away any excuse that exists.
Right.
So at no point do I want you to be sitting in a tree stand and make a mistake and then say, "Dad blast Jeremy." I don't want to hear that.
Right,
So
right.
I want to give you the best
It'll be all on
opportunities to
me.
succeed. Right? So I think that's a big deal. You have to have confidence in your equipment, and that's what we're doing today. So we need to have it set up for you perfectly. You're selecting out all of your equipment, your sight, what you're going to do there, stabilizer, all that good stuff. But then setup is giant. It has to be perfect for you. So speaking of that, so we're going to put a loop on this for your preference. Do you have a color that you would like to go with? I have 4 or 5.
I guess we'll match the pink flavor I had from my last bow. It's already on the arrows, so
Pink's an awesome color. You
Takes
can
a
definitely
confident
see
man to
low
wear
light.
pink.
fluorescent, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me grab that. Yeah, that ability to see that in low light situations, which is first thing in the morning, maybe in a ground blind, or last thing in the evening, that's huge. So do you want to serve it in top and bottom of the pink loop and this black that I just cut, or do you want to do the yellow? So this could be for the peep. So we're
Oh, that's fine.
definitely-
I'll do the black.
So you want to do pink and black? Okay.
Be great.
Making it sexy.
Yep. I want people to at least say my bow was pretty,
Oh.
Well, the does do care.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, for sure.
The bucks just look at it and they go, "That don't really matter," but the does do care.
You need to get into a new release anyway, based on what I was seeing from the end of last year. But
What do you mean?
No, I'm just saying.
What are you
it's-
trying to say?
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying it's always good to have an extra release. You drop one out of the tree and you have to crawl down out the stand to get it, and the buck guard comes snorting up there. And,
Maybe it has some bad juju.
yeah.
That's okay. I do have to get a few extras though. I only have 2. I lost one last year. Those handle releases are kind of easy to.
Well, now Keeler, tell
Absolutely.
me this while he's dialing that in a little bit. Now, the biggest buck you've killed today, okay, which
Right.
was with the bow that Jeremy set up for you
It is.
here. What was that? That was a Hoyt. What
That
model
was the Hoyt Axios Alpha. That
Okay.
was the 2020 version or 2021 maybe.
Okay, and it's been a killer for you, I would
It
say.
has. I don't think every buck I've shot at I've killed. I've collected.
which is pretty.
And they've been marginal shots too. I mean, at the time it didn't seem like it, but then you find the deer, and you're like, okay, I got liver, because big quartering away shots.
Couldn't have killed him any better.
I mean, they couldn't have been any deader.
Yeah.
But we coyotes may have got him, or we jumped him one time or something like that. But I think this new Hoyt's gonna give me what I need.
Dial it in
to get through that liver and hit the double lung.
So you changed though going into last year from the more traditional style of release to the thumb grip.
I did. I went to the thumb button release. I started with a True Ball. Bone Collector Edition, and then I went into a True Fire, which was I think it's called the Synapse, and I like both of them a lot. I prefer the forefinger. I don't know why. I just don't like the pinky hanging off. This doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather use all four fingers, and I like the traditional sear that kind of has a click and there's no more pressure. I don't really like the spring as much. I feel like it's a little less. I don't know, I just feel like sometimes it gives me the idea that it's gonna go off without me knowing, because that audible click really does something, I feel like, to your brain, just to tell you like, okay, I've shot. It's just like a an audible release for your brain.
So the big buck you got on the wall that you harvested up in Illinois, that deer, didn't you drop your release or do something like that when you got up into your stand?
So
and then you had to...
we have been watching this deer for, I don't know, maybe 3 days. So I sat on the same ridge, changing stands slightly, moving around. And the last day, Dad kept telling me, we were hanging out, eating food, and Dad kept telling me, you need to go get in the stand. He's going to walk by any second now, and you're not going to be in the stand. Go get in the stand. So
about 1 o'clock?
About 1, he was saying that. I got in the stand about 2:10 probably. Got all the way up there, and it was kind of an old, really high. The stand was probably like 35, 40 foot. Like, it was way up there. And there was not a limb on the tree. It was just like a platform yay big. The seat was about this big. And I got up there, went and put my strap around the tree because we didn't have a lifeline, and with my harness, and I dropped the strap. So I had to go all the way back down to the bottom of the tree, which I had to think was about 6 sections of ladder. I mean, it was way up there. And I got back up, and as soon as I clipped onto the tether up there, I saw a doe at the top of the hill. I mean, she could have been there the whole time watching me. I have no idea. About 200 yards up there, just through the trees.
What was that, about 2 o'clock?
It was about 2:30 at that point, and I shot him at 2:45. But
wow.
The doe walked right behind me. I had already ranged everywhere that doe walked, because I saw a buck up there, and I wasn't sure how big he was. He had his head in a tree making a scrape, and he was just kind of sitting there watching the doe. And then a fawn jumped out of nowhere. I guess it was the doe's fawn. Bumped the doe, and the buck came running in. He ran all the way from down the hill, walked right over this little natural land bridge that was behind me, exactly where the doe was, and he was at probably 15 yards, and I was drawn back, but my backpack got in the way. It was hanging off the right side of the tree, and I started to swing around the tree. I mean, he was right under the tree. I mean, I could have spit on him. I could have dropped my release on him, whatever you want to call it. And he saw me in the tree, hopped back to where it already ranged, thankfully, which was 35 yards, and I shot it through about a gap in the tree about this big. And
he was quartered away, wasn't he?
Quartered away really hard. Like, I probably went in the back of the lung. Like, it went through the back of the lung, went through most of the body, and hit the lung, I guess.
And you had one of those big rage.
Yeah, 2-inch tri-pan. So, it looked like I had a good shot. It sounded good, but when he was running away, I saw about this much air sticking out. I was like, I know I didn't hit bone, but I know that was a lot of penetration, and he just ran just out of sight, and I thought he was dead over there. But we waited till the next morning to go look, and the coyotes had gotten to him and had jumped him one time, actually, from where we originally thought he was, and we ended up recovering him though, so that was good. And
awesome.
Flat ground, I think it was like 55 yards was how far it was.
It was.
In the tree with the elevation and the drop off behind me. it was 35, but flat ground it was 55. So I can see why the air didn't go in very far.
Well, the fact that you executed on that,
Yeah.
really, to be honest, based on all that was going on, how quick it happened right after you got in the stand, really pretty miraculous.
Yeah.
To go to a holler, you know,
It was good.
that was good stuff. And that was up there at Indian Point, right off Indian Point in Illinois. One of the first trips up there.
It was our first trip.
Friend
yeah.
Mr. Drew, who had just invited us up there to that farm at that point, right? And, that
3
was just
days.
Amazing. Yeah. I love it when a plan.
It hasn't
all
worked
comes
out like
together.
that since. It's
Not quite like that. Yeah.
yeah, but you killed one the next day
I
too,
did. Nice big. He
and
was cold.
recovered him before I got
I did.
mine.
And drilled him. He didn't even move. He flipped
Yeah.
over about 2 feet.
What did you shoot him like 15 yards?
Yeah, put the hammer down on him.
Just dropped right there.
Yeah, hammer him. But yeah, that was an exciting times. I love it when it all comes together like that. Doesn't happen very often. But
Yep.
yeah.
Well, sometimes you need new bow to change your luck.
Right.
So, how many years ago was that?
That was in 20, maybe 22. If I had this season, which was 24 season, and I didn't kill anything 23 season. So that was 22 season.
See, we have good things to look forward to this year.
Right.
Every dog has his day. And that dog's happy, boys, laying in the air conditioner, just soaking it up. If that dog could tell the stories that he's heard right here in this sporting goods shop, he could write a book, couldn't he?
You're probably right.
I bet you hear some doozies up here.
Well, they won't be repeated. That's how you stay in business. This is like
I hear you.
This is like the female version of their hair salon.
Yeah.
This is where guys come to tell stories.
Well, that was a good story, and that was a true story.
Seen a lot of good deer, right?
We have. But I had my mind set on, one each year that I really wanted to get, and I could have one that come by that's bigger. I'm just like, I won't. I put too much effort in on this other one. I don't want to mess it up. So
He's been getting really picky, Jeremy.
I know I've been getting too picky, and they haven't been the biggest deer either. I'm gonna kill some does for you, so you have a better rut than lockdown.
What's your dog's name?
Anyway,
I gotta get about
she's supposed
30
to
out of there probably.
Whoa, is that what it is?
We had a lot of does this year, so we had kind of a bigger lockdown than we wanted, and so I gotta take some of them out.
You get attention now, okay?
But that's prime time. I killed mine on 14 3 years ago.
So we've hunted western Kentucky for the last 7, 8 years. We're not far at all from where the Indian Point hunting club's at, and that time of the year seems to be the right time.
Oh, it is.
So-
100%. Are you an all day sitter or?
I can be.
Okay.
It doesn't really bother me. I mean, if I kind of do.
You got enough Debbie cakes and sandwiches in there? Yeah.
And the life that we lead today, which is just hustle and bustle and go, just to sit in a deer stand and just be able to, at one at a time, listen to this bird wake up and, that squirrel go to moving and, if
Just
everything
to be
works out,
still.
have a deer walk through and
right,
just be
right.
still. Man, that is just amazing.
Peace.
Sure.
It is.
It's how the creator intended it, I believe.
All right, we got a bow and we have an arrow rest, so we need to work on sights
All right.
and
Yep.
quiver. So with this bow, being the bourbon, you've got a couple options over
Right.
there on the wall. You can obviously match
Black, right?
black. That's black.
And-
If we need to take them out and hold them next to the bow and see what would look better for you and what you would like, we'll do that also. Do that?
I don't have to take them out, but I can certainly. I think the black would probably be. Yeah, let's do the black. And I'm going with the 4 arrow this year, so I don't get enticed to shoot anything else.
Maybe that way you won't shoot so many varmints.
I won't lose as many arrows.
You're trying to
probably.
shoot at squirrels and
Raccoons
coons
and
and
possums
everything up there.
Maybe.
Put more weight in each shot.
Right.
It
right.
means more to you when you got
Means
fewer
more.
arrows.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like the same reason I carry one golf ball.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Make it count.
Yeah. Or just find
So
one
when
in
you
the creek.
show up with
Right.
a golf ball, do you leave with more though?
Yes.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yes, I usually do.
Hard for golf balls.
I feel like you're winning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. See, if I come out there with a box of golf balls, I'll lose most of them. But if I get in there with one, I'm good to go. Unless I lose that one, then that's an issue.
So you have that. So So Keither was looking at the Spot Hog 3-pin.
Yeah, I'm just tired. It's been a long weekend.
Spot Hog 3-pin is what you're buying?
Oh, I sure do.
Either that or I haven't looked at UVs.
No, just a mentally and
Any
physically
UVs?
just drowns you in trying to get situated.
I did definitely want a 310.
Trying to work a race for me.
Getting to do it.
Yes.
Have that, there he is right there.
That's the
That Spot
Spoonie
Hog,
right there.
The Bemiss.
That's definitely the next one I was.
So that was the one
looking
that we
at.
just ordered in for you to look at.
Mhm.
So that's dude is super small, light.
I don't want to break the box. Yeah.
Don't worry about that. I don't want to cut you.
Now, this is one of the latest and greatest high
This
vis.
is new for 2025, and what they did with the product line is the only complaint that I think people could have had with the Spot Hog is weight.
Right.
So this is the newest version. It's called the Boonie, and it's getting close to half of what the other one weighed. So that has the technology to mount on the front of the boat or on the Picatinny that we were talking about. So that is really neat. 3 pins like you like, you know. So, but the other side of it is you have the ability to drive it and shoot the exact yardage. If it's 63
Right.
yards and you're playing in the yard, you know, shooting, and the challenge arises between a father and son of who's going to hit the middle.
It happens occasionally.
It definitely does. So you
Just
can
a little
put
bit.
exactly the yardage on that and send it. So that's really neat. So that could also be a benefit if you're hunting, say, a food plot field scenario, and you feel comfortable shooting out to say 47. I'm making this number up.
Right.
And doe's standing out there, and you're like, you know, I don't have a pin for a 47. It's a gap between the two. I might have a 40 and a 50, but I don't have an exact 47. But those type of distances, you want to be as accurate as possible. So you could actually sight that in to the multiple yardages, and on the inside of it right there, you'll actually have right here, you'll have a pointer, and each pin has its own pointer.
And the tape's going to be on the outside
on the
swivel,
dial.
right? Okay.
Yes. So really easy to see. The movement is super slick and fast. So it's not like the traditional dial where you're clicking
Yep.
and it don't hardly move. That
Yep,
one
this one's
moves
fast.
really quick.
Cool. And I like this one because it has the the pin for each individual yardage.
Sure.
So if you wanted to shoot your middle pin still, if that's something you felt comfortable with,
Sure.
you could still do that, because I know the last one we had was a black gold, and it only had the
Single pointer.
the upper and the lower one. So I
so
think
that
I'll
one
go
there,
with this
you got
one.
all 3 pins will have pointers. So
And with all this wiring in here, it seems like it'd probably be pretty good with handling light
sure.
light
So
variation.
yeah, all that's just fiber optic that feeds
Right.
the 3 pins right there that you see. So it is incredibly bright without having to add a light. But if you do choose to use the light right there, so look right here on the side of the sight.
There's
this
a
is-
light.
This is a neat feature.
Okay.
So the light does not just burst everything, you know, a ton of excess light shine.
fiber optic.
Just the fiber optic.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing. Let me see that.
so it's not going to be blinding. A lot of times you'll see fibers
see
that
right
are lit
there.
through the top one or whatever.
So it lights the
Shine
fiber.
straight onto the
wow.
fiber.
And really, that's such an improvement, like you said, to have the big wheel and just so easy and quick to turn and adjust. Because I pretty much had gotten to where with the prior sight that I had, that black gold, which is a great sight, I love it. But we had added a pin. I had like 5 pins, you know. But you know, the only time I would dial it was target practicing and things like that. You know, I very rarely would use it. Otherwise, just because of the time and effort it would kind of take to span it.
Well, this is the multi-pin drivers that
Right.
got become incredibly popular, and 2 or 3 pin. You know, you'll see in those multi-pin drivers. So one of the things that I like about this idea is that like the two of you can be out in the yard shooting at those extreme distances we're talking about. And I'm not encouraging you to get out there and just send arrows at deer. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
That's entirely an ethics question. You know, how far you feel comfortable. So I'm not saying, you know, just because you're capable of shooting in the yard at 85 yards,
Right.
you know, don't just go sending
Right.
at 85. I'm also not saying that you can't.
Right.
I mean, if it gets to the point where, man, I can hit a 4-inch circle at 85 yards every shot.
And there's a lot based on the specific circumstances of that.
But the point is if you're getting out there and practicing at that 60, 70, and 80 yards, it's going to make a 40 feel like a chip shot.
Right.
Right. So
That's what.
you need that to take over when you have that deer standing in front of you, because we hype ourselves up.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
anything
practiced
that
it
makes
so
you
much.
shake is not good.
Oh, I know. I practiced it so much last year at long distances. I almost felt more comfortable shooting at 70 or 80 yards than I did at 20.
Sure.
Just
Makes
because.
you focus up.
Yeah, because when I would shoot at long distances, it's kind of the thump, watching it hit the target. At
Sure.
20, it's like a shotgun. You almost feel like, oh, I ought to be able to just kind of point at it and pull the trigger.
That's exactly right. So that's a
So-
mentality,
Right.
and we deal with that even in the target world. So we take those short ones for granted, and you don't put the full weight in that shot we were talking
That's
about
right.
earlier. So at that longer distance, you feel like I've got to do my best job to hit the middle.
Yeah.
Right. So at close, you said like you just throw like a shotgun.
So
Yeah,
I
you
literally
put
had
the
to
same
come
effort.
back and start practicing at 15 to 20 yards
Sure.
to try to hit a specific pin nail, and realize then how bad that I was
Sure.
really shooting at close range. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
So you want to see another side, or you like that one? Or?
I mean, let's look at another one. I like this one though. You just talk about the weight factor, and I guess that's the only downside potentially to this site compared to other ones, right?
Sure. So would you like to see it?
Sure.
You
Just look at a couple.
holding,
Right.
and just I mean it's a monster.
It's a brute. Yep.
Yeah. They took all of the good that was from this site, and the Fast Eddie is something that they can, just say this is a site that has been tried and true. It has worked for archers for a long, long time. And they took all of those positive things out of that site, and then they took some of that constructive criticism coming from archers and say, we can combine all that in a single site. So that is really, really good. So the site that you had in the past, you were shooting the
Black gold right here.
black gold stuff. Yeah.
Very similar. I
Absolutely.
don't see much of a difference from what I have besides the Picatinny attachment right there.
That's correct. So
Now-
that's a great site. You've had that one. Did you like it when you shot?
Oh, I
it?
did. I had no problems with it. It did get bent on me one time when it was traveling, but besides that,
Was
no
that
problems.
The pin or what bent? What
The entire, I guess it was the, I don't know what you would call that, the bridge right there.
That's correct.
But that's what bent.
So that would be an advantage to that spot
Yeah.
hog. It's built like a dang hammer.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's
You
incredibly
wouldn't have
tough.
that problem.
Yes. So
Well,
it's,
also it just coming off the side versus coming off the front. We had a lot with that thing coming
Sure.
off the side of the bow, and mine was the same way. Tell me this.
Extra
We
pressure.
were talking just the other day about the different style sights here and why we would go with one versus the other, and we talked about the single pin. We talked a little bit about the new, like Garmin and those type that have the range, finder built in,
Right.
which is a great option. But when we discussed like where we were going to go hunting with it, I think is what led into the site we've got, because we felt like if we were looking at going out west, there were certain states where you can't use the Garmin's range finding
that's correct. So there's a lot
site.
of the Midwestern states, specifically the elk states, that are just almost anti any electronics on the bow. And having that rangefinder sight is a huge advantage, right? So being able to draw back and at full draw a ranger target, and it also give you a pin that's appropriate for that distance. That takes a lot of things that we carry as hunters, like rangefinders, the bow,
Right.
and consolidates all that equipment in your sight. So yes, that is an advantage. But if your plans are is to hunt elk in those states that it's not legal, now it brings up the problem that we've got to pull a sight off. You've got to set up an entire bow up at that point in time just for that trip. So it, in some cases, would make more sense to select something that you get a lot of advantage out of, multiple pin driver, and say this is legal in all of the situations that I'm going to hunt.
Well, and if you were going to shoot any tournament series that maybe was just hunting setup, but a tournament series too, right? That would.
May not be
Be a
legal
champ.
for that class.
Right.
So this is another one here. This is the B3, and this is one I would like for you to look at also. So that's the single pin version. I'll show you the dual pin or multi-pin version of it too. This one.
That's what Bill Winky shoots right here.
So
B3
these.
exact sights.
So this is a great one. It is a multi-pin driver, but its claim to fame is how extremely light it is.
Oh, it is.
So it is the side wheel driver on there, and it's very quick. You do have multiple pointers there, 3 pins. Not quite as durable, as the Boonie,
Right.
the Spot Hogs.
But it has to do that because it's light.
You're going to sacrifice to gain something, right? So in that situation, when you skeletonize everything out, it's not going to be as durable. It's still a full aluminum sight. It is incredibly durable, but it just went out of the track. Let's push it up in there.
Got it.
There you go. So I do like those also. They do incredibly well. We saw quite a few of those. I shot that sight in a single pin. So we were talking earlier about single pin versus multi. And I'm a single pin guy. I have shot that for many years, but I don't think that is the way for everybody.
Right.
You know, so it just depends on what you like. So I shoot a bow much like an individual would shoot a rifle. So if we sight your rifle in at inch high at 100 yards, that's a very popular way to sight a rifle in. You would have the ability to then shoot that rifle out to 250, 300 yards.
Right.
Without adjusting it, right? Knowing I need to aim just a little high or low in those situations. That's how I shoot a bow. So, but not everybody thinks that way.
Right.
When you're shooting a pin like this, it is incredibly nice to know that those pins and those right there, if you started your top one at 30, you would have out to a 50-yard pin.
Right.
So I know exactly where the point of contact is going to be on that deer. That is an advantage to a lot of people out there, and it's a better way, in my opinion, to go to this than it is to have just fixed pins, because they're
Right.
limited to just the pins and what you set them. This one with the dial, I mean, you can see on that right there, that one's got it out to 110 yards. So we can put it dead on.
Of course, that's all we used to have was the old fixed pins, and
That's right.
you know, figured it out. But this new technology and the ability to have that flexibility on the range is amazing. All right.
I really don't feel like for me that I need a 50 pin.
Sure.
Maybe for like the elk environment potentially.
I need it.
He needs it. I'm just gonna say he's probably a better shot than I am. For me, if I can put it at 30 and 40, like I don't think I need a 50. You know?
So the only negative to that
Right.
design is those pins on that 3-pin are adjustable individually.
Okay.
Where this is, the top one is adjustable with your sight, and your second one will just be whatever the pointer points at. So that might be a 30 and a 42. It may be a 30 and a 38.
Oh,
So
okay.
It may not be exactly 30-40.
Okay, just because it's already pre-spaced.
Right.
Oh.
So we lose the ability when you have that to have it exactly at these
Right.
specific whatever I want to set it at.
All right,
Okay.
so not getting
So-
in your business. So on the side though, you have the three. On this one,
On
on
that
triple
one.
stack, but you can adjust it. Has it where you can adjust the pointer here on this one, just
Sure,
not
sure.
the sight pin itself.
Okay.
So we can set, you can set the pins on that one. So
Right.
that one I can set to 20, 30, 40, 30, 40, 50, exact.
I'm going off the back.
Okay.
Those
Right.
are set, you can set those also.
So you can set this, but you can't adjust these. Say once you get sighted in, you
can't
couldn't
this one.
slide. You can on the vertical.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this one right here,
Okay.
those are, you can see that, so those
Right.
right there, they're non-adjustable, they're
Right.
fixed in that spacing.
Okay,
And
I
that
didn't know that.
spacing represents the spacing of the pins.
Okay.
So
And-
whatever, if you set your top one at 20, it's gonna tell you the value of the bottom on
Okay.
that particular one.
Okay.
Where this one.
And that'll
each-
change basically based on the FPS or the tape.
Sure.
Right, what time tape
Sure.
you use. Okay.
That's exactly right.
I didn't
So
know that
you may
worked
change
that way.
arrows, you may change broadhead weight, and it changes 100% of that. Whereas in the one that she's holding, that Booney 3-pin, this one you have the ability to not only set each individual pin, like we could
Okay.
do a 30, 40, 50 exactly, then you can set the pointers to be pointing at 30, 40, 50.
That's big.
That's big.
That's big. Yeah, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable with it being like not exactly 40.
Sure.
And basically, the difference you're talking about there is in 2-pin versus 3-pin, but also in the adjustability of the pins once you
Right.
get it ranged in. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, the adjustability in this situation we're talking about is probably the deciding factor that Keeler's looking at, right?
And if I'm not mistaken, the face on the stack looked a little bit smaller, or the housing looked smaller than the.
They come with multiple housings.
Okay.
So, oh, you're saying the whole
The
head.
face,
Yeah.
right? The head.
Actually, the whole head.
That one
is
could about
bigger.
fit in that one.
That's right. And then most of the spot hogs, this ring here comes with a single, or you see it right there on that one.
Right.
A single ring and a 2-ring and then a 3-ring. So you're getting that to fit the peak better.
You're right.
That's what the purpose is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So So in knowing that, I would probably go without.
But to have, like your point, to have that extra size on the outside of the pen, when you're hunting, a lot of times when you're looking through that sight, there is a huge benefit to be able to see what's 12 foot left and
Right.
And right of each target. So I mean, the biggest buck of your life, you may be fixing to shoot one of those 130-inch deer. And when you're in Illinois, the next second a 200 might show up. Right? So if you're at full draw on 130-inch deer and a 200-inch deer steps out, you're probably not going to continue with the shot on 130.
Right.
Probably. Right.
Yeah.
So, if you have the ability. So that was what that larger field of view is going to give you. And I like that idea, so to have that larger field of view.
Okay.
Plus we selected a 1/4-inch peep sight for low light situations, so having that larger
Good.
aperture housing is definitely going to benefit. So I like this. I like the
Okay.
idea.
I'm glad Stephanie, the brains of the operation, stepped in there and gave us some insight on that.
Not me. I'm not the brains.
Oh, come on now. Said, does that look bad or what?
Like a good bad.
Wow. Starting to look like a setup there,
Looks
guys.
like a bad man.
Wow, look at how the quiver mounts up there and all. That's
Yeah, those
Pretty
accessories
sharp.
just set that color off.
Heavy, just a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, you know, you
Well,
see
you got
professionals shoot. Everybody always finishes like this, anyways. You know, that's where they want it. But I think a little bit more weight on the bottom would.
stick
That's-
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Go ahead and do that, so that way his first shots out of the bow would be positive feedback.
Right. Right on to where the lower
Right there on the
stabilizer
bottom.
connects.
There's actually
It's
two
a
holes.
Separate hole just for that,
Yep.
for the stand.
And then you have a totally separate hole for another stabilizer, or you know. Then you have this for the the side stabilizer if you wanted one of those.
So this is a little lighter. That's lighter, but to take those two legs off, you have to unscrew both of them. So I don't necessarily like that for this reason or for that reason. This one, that's the Go Stick. This is the Go Stick 2.0. And this one, you just loosen those two hand wheels and then it will flip back and you leave it on the bow.
But that'll still fit the case like that? It'll be fine in the case?
That's the full width.
Okay.
So I would say yes, because that's not much different
And that
than the limbs
flips
themselves.
like up here.
That's correct.
Okay.
So it would sit, yeah, right there. Finish up.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just like that.
All right, let's do this one.
Sounds good.
I would rather you have this.
Hold it
You
but
wear
good.
in, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty right there.
Kiddo, you gonna like that.
It's gonna be cool.
You said that's one of the things you're most excited about on the whole combo, huh?
The Go Sticks? I think so. 100%. It hurt my soul every time I had to set that thing on the concrete or the dirt, you know?
On her own. That's
Oh my
great.
gosh.
So now you can just walk out and you
She
shoot
can
in the
walk.
yard, just set it down. And both the top and bottom cams, you have that tab that stands off of it.
Yep.
It's got that rubber
Yep.
bushing right
Check
there.
this out.
Keep it off the floor.
Talking about keeping the cam.
What?
Traditionally, this right here, they have a little tab on it, has rubber on it, so it's never touching metal to metal. It's got the
Amazing.
rubber right there. Listen to this. Do you hear anything?
Oh, wow. That's cool there now. That's cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Pretty stable too. You see how wide those things are.
Yeah, you could definitely jerk camp with it, no doubt.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean you're sitting on the ground, you know, and then you're sitting like this, and then you just,
Oh, yeah.
or especially in a blind scenario.
That's nice.
There's never a good place to put your bow in a blind, and now you
I like
just kind of put it right on the ground.
I like it.
I guess they fold up. Just give it a little twist.
Yep, so you're gonna just go counterclockwise, lefty loosey, righty tighty. You go counterclockwise, you pull down a little bit, and then it swivels and it'll
Okay.
go right straight back. So storage, you put it in a case, those type
And you
things.
just
You just
tighten
snug
it
'em
back up.
So you're also in a tree stand, there's no need in removing it. It
No
locks them
moving.
down, they don't vibrate.
I like it.
No moving. Sleek.
Nice. Now we get to see if you can shoot that thing here in just a minute.
All right.
Awesome.
There's your bullet. All right, so we're going to step back here in the back. We're going to shoot the air out of it, but really what we're checking right now is to make sure that the peep height is perfect, and also we're going to get the timing string right there, cut that and clean that up a little bit, because all that excess hanging off really messes with my OCD,
Okay.
so we don't really want that.
All right.
It needs to be as clean, as beautiful as that bow is. We don't want anything hanging off extra on there. So this is not your release, right? So this is just one we're using today. So also if we need to change peep heights in the future, so if your release, the one that you're shooting, you see the peep maybe a little high or low because of release change, you can always run it back to me. The way we tie that, I can move that with our tools. So let's get it done. Let's turn this into a killer.
That's where the business happens back here. Stephanie says y'all can have all this front door retail stuff, talking, and
Yes, y'all can.
so this is where the action really happens back here.
Fun stuff.
That's right.
But that way, that's just single hand operation.
All right, you don't have to bring it over and do that.
So the advantage in that, just going over real quick, when you're loading, you can just have right hand on the arrow, get it on there, and then Alright, so the way this is now, it's going to pull the amount of cord that it needs to make that shot. But really what we're doing right now, like we're talking about, is peep height. So when you get it back, once you get your anchor really solid the way you were, tip the nose on the string, and then you're going to give me feedback as to whether that peep needs to go up or down.
Down.
So we're going to make that, so ease it down. So it's also really short right now. So we're going to make that a little longer real quick too.
Yeah.
So how that's done, and this is the same thing as those knobs we were talking about with Matthew. The draw length and all is controlled right here with these knobs. So we're going to swap those real quick and get this to fit you a little bit better.
Taylor's question is, what are we eating for lunch,
Hoping
Daddy?
it's Mama June's or something.
Mama June's. Well, if Poppy's got anything to do with it, we're supposed to have a lunch date with my dad, I think, a little after we get done, and he'll probably have a table warmed up at Mama June's.
Oh, yeah.
Is what's going to give that little bit extra length.
That's correct.
How much you adding? A ½ inch or how?
We're going to start with an inch.
Okay. So that's going to put it at what, 29?
29.
29. Okay. What was it set from the
28.
factory? Okay. Yeah, and I think 29 is probably about
We
where
talked
we thought.
about that when we started, but
probably it should
yeah,
be.
then with your bow and all, I just kind of applied that idea.
Sure,
Well, let's
sure.
just start.
Let's
from,
see where it needs to be.
Right,
Right.
and we'll set it up 100% for
Right.
him. So a lot of times when you're making adjustment calls as to length, poundage, peep height, and all, yes, I've been doing this long enough that I can make a good guess. But
Right.
that's end of the day, that's what it is a guess. So I would rather be able to see the feedback, see not only what Keeler's telling me, but then also with the body, you need to have
Right. Posture.
those lines and posture and bone structure alignment. You have to have all of that in a shot also. So for
Right.
him to be as good of an archer as he can possibly be.
Absolutely.
So Keeler, this is something you can play with also without any need of a press or whatever. So these are let offs, and you can see they're clearly marked. It says 85, 80, and 75.
Okay.
So that's an advantage for you as an archer, and also legalities in certain states. So Montana has a law that you cannot hunt with a bow that's over 80%.
Okay.
So if you decide to ever go to Montana elk hunt, that's what they're known for. You could adjust this bow to the 80%, make it completely legal to do that. So also
Wow.
it could be a feel thing. So if you get out in the yard and you start shooting this, and you feel like, man, I think I would like to have a little more let off or a little less let off at the back side. So instead of holding back, this is a 70-pound bow, so at 80% you'd be holding 14 pounds at 80%. At 85%, you'd only be holding back 10.5 pounds.
Right.
So having that feel difference for a hunting scenario, you might like that little less or a little more holding weight. Generally, hunters tend to go for less holding weight because you may come to full draw and that deer give you a bad angle, or it's standing behind a tree that you actually can't make a shot through, obviously, regardless of penetration. We're not going to blow through trees. But you have to hold it for a little longer than you planned on. Well, if you're holding back 14 pounds versus 10.5, I know that don't sound like a lot, but 3-4 pounds is a ton when you hold it for a minute. Right? So that would give you that ability to hold that bow, make a little bit better shot when the shot actual happens. But what's neat is you're seeing me do all this without a bow press.
Easy peasy.
So Keeler and I were talking earlier, and 10 years ago, this was not a thing. You had to have a bow press to change any of this stuff.
Right.
So any adjustment that you needed had to go back to the shop, or you had to have a bow press, and some of those things are $800-900 for a bow press. For this now, you can just do leisurely at the house and as easy as at the kitchen table. All right. So what we just did is we changed that by a full inch. So we're at 29 now.
You know, typically you'll see these kind of releases with just the hook right there, but this one has a little keeper on it to be able to, you know, and I guess you can run it without that as well.
You could, sure.
But this is just one he had, but it's kind of cool. I've never seen that before.
So you lowered the peep a bit.
We didn't move the peep, so a lot of times when you change draw length, it's going to feel different.
Okay.
So it is still right there. So this is the beauty. You can, what's peep sight look like?
It's in the same spot.
Okay. So go ahead and let it down, shoot it, whatever. So that is 29 right there that we just shot. But what's great about what we're doing right now, it's still too short. So we're going to go even longer than that.
Okay. And I'm just looking.
That's about perfect right there.
Yep. So you see how the angles of what we were talking about earlier with, you know, his joint from the wrist to the elbow is very parallel to the arrow.
Right.
All right, so you can go, your peep height good now? All right, so you can go ahead and shoot when you get ready.
All right, Keeler. You got yours right. Let's get this Matthews put together. Specific pins and distances. We're just looking at the peep sight and the alignment right now. So I'm using one of Keeler's arrows actually before we even get into my new arrow setup. But the main thing we're looking at right now is the length in here, just to see if I close my eyes and I just line it up at my
anchor point, and the length, I believe, seems perfect. At first, the peep sight was about a half a ring high. Now she's looking great.
Queued up here. This is a little different style sight for me. The one that I had on my previous bow was very similar, but this new driver is just, it looks like it's going to be so much easier to adjust on the fly. Very light, just so much easier to turn. Whereas before mine had small dials, and I very rarely would use that. When I was hunting or really trying to dial in the shot. We're going to see how well that works for us, and looks like the illumination should be good on it. It's not quite as illuminated and as large as the one that Keeler's going with. It's a slightly different option. It's a little smaller and a little more compact. But I'm kind of trying to get away from the bulkiness that I'm used to, where that sight would take up a lot more space in the case and things like that. But this setup is, this lift, this new one, the X here, is definitely lighter, a little lighter than what I'm used to. And this 80-pound draw I went to over the 70. It took a pullback or two just to get a feel for it. But I do feel like it was very doable. Just kind of got to get back in bow shape with it here a little bit. I think the length is great. I think the peep is right on now, right on the mark. Best I can tell. So,
Cut some arrows in.
yeah.
What, like 29?
Yes, ma'am. And then I can actually dial in the sight a little bit. But man, I'm excited about it. Dude, that thing's throwing. I mean, it's throwing the ball. Goodness gracious. That really locks it down. Nice. Sweet.
The other side of the arrow that would be vibrating.
And it would catch on stuff or hit on things. So that's really a lot more compact and a lot more
Yeah,
concealed.
super close to the bow.
Right.
Also, when it comes off, flip it around, take that off for me and watch it. So when it comes off, the bracket that is left is super close to the bow.
Oh, right.
So very unaffecting of the shot.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. Wow, that's sure. I like it. Okay.
A lot of thought.
A lot of thought went into that. No doubt about it. Yes, every time they make a new series, they're perfecting it just a little bit more.
So that the stand that you're talking about, you have on your other bow also.
Right.
So when they first did that, we were having people that would buy bows just to get that feature.
Right.
Sure.
Yep.
Trade the old bow in.
I didn't realize how nice or how valuable that stand was going to be until I got that DXR. And you say, you might want to consider getting one of these stands. Man, I started using that thing. I just kept it on almost all the time. Take it off to put it in the case or something. And every once in a while.
So did you use it when you took it to Illinois?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Constantly. Very rarely. Every once in a while, if I was in a position where I was hanging it somewhere and I felt like it might be in the way, I'd fold it up and stick it in my bag. But most of the time, even in a ladder stand or whatever, I would never even take it off.
Sure.
Yeah. Shot with it on there all the time. And,
Yeah,
got
because
used
it's
to it.
attached to the limb cup, it don't change
Yeah.
no vibration, noise, or anything coming
No.
from it. It's nice.
Very nice. Love it.
Absolutely. So when you're building an arrow, like I say, you could start, like you said, with the broadhead and then work backwards going to the bow. But it would be smarter to know what your parameters are that you're playing with, right? So draw length, draw weight, total air weight, what you want to build it to.
Right.
So what we were talking about earlier is the arrow that has that green outer coating on it right there. That's the anodized arrow, and it's basically 2 arrows in one. And it has a carbon core with aluminum on the outside, so your penetration will definitely be increased because of that. And that is derived out of the old full metal jacket. So this would be this arrow. So the difference between the full metal jacket and the full metal jacket max is just the physical weight of the arrow. So a lot of people found that arrow that you're holding right there is a little heavy. So in the spine that you've selected, based off of your draw weight, and also draw length, you're going to need somewhere around the 300 spine arrow. So the 300 spine in the full metal jacket is going to be literally an extra grain per inch. So if you don't need that much weight, which there are reasons for that, elk hunting, or if you are shooting big hog, 500-600 pound hogs, so you need that extra mass. But if you're shooting whitetail deer and mule deer and things of that nature, there's not really a need to have all that excess. So I'm personally going to shoot the Maxes this year, which is the ones with the green sighting.
Right.
It's in that moderately weighted arrow. It's going to be somewhere in that 450 to 5 range. With a 100 grain tip, we were talking about possibly going to the 125.
Right.
So it's just going to be a little bit heavier if you so choose it to do that. But
Sure. Well, I've always shot the 100 grain, broadheads and field tips. But this last year, and the more we've gotten into big game and even larger whitetails, I've seen the ability for that 125 to penetrate a little better through the shoulder blades and things like that. And I think with my bow in particular, and the setup I'm going with this year, we've lengthened the draw just a hair, therefore lengthened the air just a hair, and the poundage going from 70 to 80. We'll check the FPS and all on it in a little bit, but I'm hoping that I can push that 125 with good flat accuracy, just to give myself, like you said, especially with the metal jacket and the new version of that, just that much better penetration on.
no doubt.
But what we're used to shooting, like I was shooting just a minute ago in Keeler's bow, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. I mean, we've had great success with just your 300, 340 axis Eastons.
So that's the neat thing, is the weight range as far as relative to spine. The full metal jacket Max is going to weigh almost identically what you would see in an axis.
Right.
So you don't have to go to that extreme weight range just to go to a full metal jacket any longer.
Right. Well, and that's what I've been shooting in that DXR for the last 4 years, and I mean that's just been a deadly combination, especially with the 100 grain broadhead and shooting an average 70 pound pull in that bow, 28 to 29 draw length. I mean, that's been a killer. And of course we, generally for hunting purposes, we're allowed, we'll upgrade to the Illuminat, style knock, and that gives you a little better visibility and all on it.
And all of those will fit inside of the full metal jacket Max also. So all you have to do is just pull a knock out. That would take the standard X knock, which is what goes in the axis as well.
Right.
So if y'all wanted to swap back and forth, if you needed a knock and he had one, you'd be able to utilize that same technology with both of them.
Yeah, and that is very important, because we were up at our camp up there in Illinois last year, and we had a few guys that came in with some real specialty arrows, and next thing you know, they didn't have the right knocks, and we couldn't even get them. We keep a lot of stuff in stock, and we didn't have the right Luminox and all to fit their arrows. So it is really nice to be able to interchange those kind of things. And of course, I've been shooting the last few years the mega meat in the 100 grain. I'm going to step up and try to do it in the 125 this year, and I always keep some stationary broadheads and all in my quiver as well, if I feel like we're really going to be hunting in the brush and need to eliminate the possibility of that thing blowing up. But as far as accuracy at long range, I mean, it's hard to beat that good mechanical broadhead.
There's just nothing on the
like a
front
field
steer
point.
it.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, I know that Miss Stephanie just cut some down for me, and so I'm excited to go shoot a few of them and see how they fly.
Should be perfect.
Knowing that we are going to use this slide, and I'm probably going to be running all the way out to say 100 yards. I remember on my other bow, we set it all up, but then realized that, let's say the fletching, when I tried to get out past 80, was going to be hitting the bottom of that. Do you have any recommendation? You think it's set up in a good enough position now, or do we need to adjust the bottom of this up? You think to get it out to the 100?
You want to start as high in it as you possibly can. So go all the way to the top where you just saw it hit that bottom out position. And then once you get there, we're going to lock that down, and we're going to start there. Okay. So this one has a couple advantages over most sites you're talking about. So it has 3 pointers: top pin, second pin, third pin, on your pointers on the inside.
Right.
So when you have that scale on the inside, you can actually at any point use any one of those pins as an aiming point. So my point there is like, so if you're shooting a single pin, that's how you got one. This one you can choose to shoot the bottom pin, and you can get out to plus 100. So you go less than this from the bottom.
Okay. You think we're gonna be able
I don't think we're gonna need
to be able to get out to 100 or whatever?
I think we definitely be able to.
Alright, so we're gonna start out at 10 yards. Just make sure we're not missing the whole target here. I think we're pretty close. I know we got the length and the feet and all the other alignment in place.
You're pretty close. You look good.
Yes, sir. I was shooting at the top target.
Foot low.
Right, almost a foot low. So we can certainly go ahead and make an adjustment there. Much easier to adjust, I guess, than the other.
It is incredibly easy to adjust, and there's multiple ways of doing it. So what I'm going to do right now, instead of moving the head down on here, I'm going to move this whole bracket. So to bring that
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that to me about the knock and having just that little notch on the side of the feel. Because that really does make it a lot easier. I don't even like to have to look at it, so just to be able to feel it.
Yeah, early in the morning, there's a lot of confidence.
All right, let's see. We slid the whole bar just a little bit and try to correct it. So let's see if
So you should hit a lot closer to the middle this time.
one for the same top circle.
Now we're in the target. Still what? 2 inches low or something?
So on this model, like you said, to adjust the whole, bar is slightly different than if you,
So what we're doing is I'm going to move, because we're hitting still about 2 inches low at 10 yards. So we're going to move the whole bar down just so when we back up to 20, we'll have more movement.
Yes.
That's the stop. So what happens is when it comes all the way up to the top, it's hitting that stop.
Right.
But if you need it to go up a little bit more, you have to adjust the
adjust
stop.
that up.
So that way it will hit slightly higher, which is what you need is continuing to get higher. That's the lock. Now we're done.
Okay. Now, on this style of sight, when you were moving it to where you said right to left, but what did you just adjust? That's a little different than the style I'm used to.
Yep, and you'll never do that again. So
Okay.
this is your major, left and right, and your minor is this wheel here.
Okay, I
This
see.
is your click left and right.
Yeah.
That's all
This
you'll
one,
do.
like you said, you turned it with the Allen to be able to slide this slightly left or right.
So it slides
So if we get that dead on, we shouldn't have to mess with that anymore.
anything else from that point forward will all go, it's
And
gonna
then
be.
once I get used to just kind of the feel of that knock, I won't have to look at that. So that'll be great. Okay. Good. I think that last tweak we made on lowering that probably make a difference.
And the only thing against Ohio is they allow bait piles still. And whenever it's good.
I hear you back there.
Probably a couple weeks, but right now
Thank you, Ron.
He's out there acting like he's talking on the phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was talking all big until he got smoke fresh there out of the chute.
It's like Mike Tyson's quote, everybody's got a plan to keep it front
To
to
the
the mouth.
mouth. Exactly. So we got the 125 grain broadhead. We have the actual arrow that we're going to be hunting with. Got everything kind of tightened up and dialed in. I think we got our left and right pretty close. Right where it was at when I released it. I think that's just below left of center, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think you could kill a squirrel this afternoon if you wanted to.
Well, that's what I like to do, you know. Squirrel
I'll
hunt.
shoot it up and then it's lightning.
Things will eat, taste like chicken, right?
Are you gonna go first? And just tune me out. You want me to go first? You can go first. Listen, you want me to go? I'll go. We're not aiming the same target. Go here. You go from the top up 2. I'll go from the bottom right. I missed brutally.
The pressure got
I
to
took
him.
your lunch money.
Pressure got to him.
That was bad.
Not by much.
Not by mine.
He's in the top of yellow and you're the
Yeah, I got it.
This is called, what kind of iris?
So it's an adjustable iris. So if
Yeah.
you'll sit there and look at it from the back side while I adjust this, you'll see. All right, so the light in this case is coming mainly from the top, just like you're outside. So if you do this, it's going to
Oh,
kill a
I
lot of
see.
the fiber optic.
Okay.
So for light from getting to the fiber, whereas then if I go around, it continually gets brighter
Okay,
and brighter.
brighten it up. Wow, that's amazing.
So early in the morning, ground blind situation, we do have a light on the side of this one right now. So if you wanted to remove that, you just simply unscrew it. So if you wanted to start out in the morning, I would start open. So that light is going to be only effective in low light scenarios. So if you take the light, like that's incredibly bright now, right?
Right.
But if you take the light away from it, let's see if I can kill it.
Shield.
Now,
Oh,
now,
wow.
now turn it on and let's see.
Holy cow.
See if you can see it glowing.
Just turn on when you flick the switch.
Mhm.
It's not coming on.
So it's going to be fairly dull.
Something I can do the same. I don't think it's flipping on.
Very dull. So that's full black.
Still, though, like you said, that's amazing how much light. I was looking at it, see if I can get this in the camera, how bright that is right there compared to when you cover that up. How much light that's drawing. I mean, that's amazing.
As bright as that is,
Oh, okay, it is.
we just didn't have it on. But it's made for low light, is what that's made for. So you don't want the fiber optic just to be overbearing, you know, when you're looking at it. It'd be like you sitting in the vehicle and a dang state patrol officer shines a flashlight in your eye and says, "Sir, you've been drinking," right? It's, you can't see anything but that. So that's what that fiber optic would look like. It'd be just too much. So we're trying to not see just this. We have to see the animal as well.
Sure. Well, another unique feature that you were showing me a minute ago about this that I'm going to go home and work with a little bit as we sight in each individual yardage is just the fact that, like you said, you can loosen, you know, one or all of those individual pins, and then with this dial here and slide, again, one or all, whichever ones are loose.
Sure.
Man, that's
Having the ability to micro adjust it.
yeah.
Yeah, so because it's really easy with our big old fat fingers to
Yeah.
make these huge adjustments, not
Right.
meaning to.
Right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the sight that I have on my VXR, which I love and I've learned to use very well, but you have to be very, very careful as you loosen it up and then try to slide it with your fingers to
Hold it, lock it,
to
yeah.
move it just that little millimeter or whatever it may be and lock it back in. And versus
That used to be the only way.
this is a lot more
Used to be
control.
the
I
only-
mean, you know.
That's great. Well, I'm excited about it. I'm gonna get out there and this evening and tomorrow I'll be shooting it more and getting comfortable with it and getting my yardages fixed. And I'll come back in over the next week or two and let you look at it again with me and just make sure everything's dialed. But
That's when it gets really fun when you start shooting out a distance.
Right.
You can really tell, when things are working
this
with
much
you.
becomes this much. What about shooting it through the FPS to check that? We need to do that probably for the matrix, right? Okay, we'll do that next. All right.
We'll let him up to where
You can shoot it.
it's slowing down.
And the tapes that go on these, they are SPF based to start with, right?
Right. All right, so this is what you call the drag race, right?
You go first?
Keita, you got the Corvette? Sexy
I guess so.
Corvette?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't want to shoot the machine.
I'll guide you. That looks good right now.
We'll get
305. Ooh, that's steaming.
That's impressive.
That's impressive. Can we shoot again?
There's one more, just confirm.
Just to make sure we are as fast as we think we are.
So do you remember the speed of your old bow?
289.
That's huge.
Huge. It's huge.
Yes, sir. 15 feet a second is giant. Looking good.
307. She's getting faster.
Oh yeah.
And that's
Okay.
a good heavy hunting arrow too. That's not any of that little sissy stuff.
Right. No sissy
Just 'cause
stuff
it's
here.
pink. Just 'cause it's pink.
All right.
Don't let it fool you.
Pick her up, Dad.
All right. Let's see what the Ferrari will do. Ferrari or maybe a Lamborghini.
Poppy. Mine went 307. Yeah.
We're having a drag race here. Come
Oh,
here.
I see it, I got you.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I need to be about right here.
That's fine. Step back a little bit.
Right in there.
Yeah, that looks great.
Full.
299. He's a
299.
slow little man.
299.
Uh-oh.
Pound pole.
Gotta turn this thing up some more. Don't tell me the Hoyt's faster.
299.
I just got slow out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
you got to jump on me.
It might get faster.
I think you got to jump on me.
Matthew's got to warm up a little bit. They take a little longer, huh?
I'm old man.
All right.
Get down in it. That's right there. Cool.
Let's see.
Uh-oh.
299. Oh, you're super slow.
Got me, but I punch harder.
Let me.
Let him shoot your arrow
Yeah.
let's
Now
see if
you
it makes
shoot
it-
my arrow.
That's a 125 grain and a heavier arrow.
and a heavier arrow.
And see.
Let's see what it does.
Yeah.
So this is 100
So
grain.
I can tell you this, just me knowing what numbers do. You got a 125 in the nose of this. If we just did nothing but put a 100 in the front, it's the same speed.
Okay.
Really?
But this arrow is a
change
little
the tip.
lighter.
Okay,
And
okay.
the tip's a little lighter.
Yep.
Down. That's good.
315.
Wow.
Whoa.
Dang. That's zooming.
How about that?
Gosh, that makes me question everything I've done.
Now, just for fun, you want to put the 125 in that
I
one?
think you
It
want
would
to
slow it down to 8 feet.
Okay, 8 feet.
8 feet. Let's
And that
test
would put it right on mine.
Test your theory. Does that fit in that one? Yeah. Supposed to.
It's probably just got a little bit of glue in there.
That into the- Yeah. Keeler, smoking fast. But you know, am I really going for speed? That's the question. What are we
But
trying
it's
to-
already faster than your old bow.
It's very quiet.
With a heavier arrow and a heavier head.
That's true. I was shooting about 290, 289.
Yeah.
The VXR with the 100 grain, I was shooting like 289.
Let's see. Fast. Zooming.
Alright, so this is 100 grain. Down. There you go.
307.
307, it's exact. Yep.
So that's,
You saying Jeremy knows what he's talking about?
Jeremy might know what he's talking about.
so now try that one.
Yeah, like you've done it before,
So
Jeremy.
that's going the opposite direction. Now that's a 125 in the
Oh.
nose of that one.
Okay.
So we're gonna be right at
Oh.
315 minus 8 is where we're gonna be.
I was gonna say 3 or 7.
Real six.
306.
So that's you got your knock down there in a different era.
Right. So that the weight of the arrow, the weight of the tip.
So now these two,
Right.
this
Combination.
this one with a 125 and this one with a 100 are almost the same.
Okay. Well, I'm a believer. As much as I like to be fast, I think I'd just rather be the tank, the Sherman, you know, plowing through. So, what do you think, Keeler?
I mean, I'm happy to see mine's going that fast. I'm excited.
Right.
I've never seen numbers like that. When I saw that, I said, "Whoa, that's crazy." It's crazy right there.
So we're gonna take this a step further. We'll step up front. So the Matthews with this arrow, 299, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
299.
And then Peeler's arrow out of his Hoyt, 307.
307.
So we're gonna step up there and weigh them and see what they weigh. So this arrow right here is gonna be high 450, 460 range. That one's gonna be like 420 or so.
420. Yeah, I'm looking to have close to 500, so I need to stick with
That's
something.
not
like
far from that.
that. Question for you.
Now,
When
you're
you're
also
shoot-
talking about knocking the back too, so that's gonna increase it by about 20.
So, question for you: when you're shooting through, you know, the chronograph, does it matter? You know, is it gonna make a very big difference if you're here versus here?
And
So-
not just this and this, so this measures, this is an infrared light on that plane and the infrared light on this plane, okay? So it's measuring passing through these two
Okay.
planes. So this is how we're shooting it, right?
Right.
So you can see how much that is. So if we shot it through there like this, right? So instead of shooting it square, we
Right.
shot it through right there. It's gonna take a longer time going through there. So if we didn't take the time to adjust this, and you shot it through there like that or like
wouldn't
that,
be
it
exact.
would register slower.
Let me shoot it one more time. Then.
So also, like your point, if you got too close to where the arrow is still being pushed by the bow when it enters into that first plane, it hadn't hit its full potential speed, it would register slower. Or if you back up a little bit to where it's starting to slow down, you know, as it's getting to it, it would register slower.
Alright,
So we're
so
trying
this
to
is-
really get it to where, if you just held your bow out right now, just hold it out. So it's done
about where you
pushing
want
at
it.
that spot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's about where we want it.
That's about where we're going.
Right in there.
Angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that, about right there?
That's great.
301. Call it 300. We'll take it.
So you got another little bit out of
Yeah, I
it.
just want to make sure we were getting as accurate as we could, and I like
It's
round
still a
numbers.
little
300 is a good
bit.
number for me.
Yep.
You know, just 299 versus
Really,
301.
what
man.
happened is he just pulled it out.
Right. Gave it a little extra.
He said, "I got to get that 300
Kind of like putting your weight into the golf swing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Put some hips in
Right.
it. This is a Eastern Axis 340, 29 inches in length, right?
Right.
100 grains in the nose.
Our best friend is then doing.
And this one had the Hoyt shot 307.
It did.
436.6.
436.6 grams.
That's great.
That is great. Yeah. Not bad. Now, if you add, let's say you put a Luminoc on there, a Luminoc is
About 20 heavier.
about 20 heavier. Okay.
450.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Where it's going to be.
I did not know that.
So when you go lit Knox, you're going to increase it to about 450 grams. All
Gotcha.
right, so this is the arrow out of the Matthews,
That's pretty
125 in the nose,
Well, when'd you get out of
300
that?
spine,
Mhm.
Change?
max at 480 even.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. What was that weight again? That was
480.
480. Okay, so by the time I put 20, like you said, that's going to put me just 500
500.
dead on the head.
Heavy
That's
sucker.
right where I want it to be, baby. Give me some. That's what I'm talking about, Arrow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Awesome. About being at 500, just dead on the head right there. Really, really.
If you put that lit knock in the back, it's going to be eating up 500.
Absolutely.
All on top of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
And yours is going to be right at 450.
your
So-
bottom. So say this one should be like on the 30, right?
That's correct. Top
And
one.
then this one would be on the 40, and this one would be on the 50, or
That's correct.
okay, and you just line it up just like this.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you'll make your pointer, because these are adjustable, the pointers.
Okay.
So your top pointer is going to point at 30, right?
Yep.
Your second pointer is going to point at 40. Third pointer is going to point at 50. So then when you adjust that, whatever you adjust it to, it's always going to tell you what those 3 pointers are then
Okay.
representative
But
of this.
because of this, it'd be more like that. Okay.
That's right. Now, if you want to try this, the only thing that I'll tell you, so with this,
Okay.
you'll need to, these are all adhesive tapes, okay?
Right.
So for that one right there being right-handed, you're going to cut right down this inside edge. So these
You're gonna want the
inner-
numbers on the right side.
on the right side.
Okay.
Yep, because your pointer needs to be pointing at a hash.
Okay. Right.
So
Perfect.
All right, amen.
That's how you do it right there. Okay.
We got some work to do. We got to put in the work now.
Yeah.
Jeremy's done this much of the work so
I'm gonna
far,
have to
but
shoot a couple of weeks. To
Absolutely.
Make sure I'm hitting good at 60.
right now we got to put in the work. Like Jeremy told me earlier, he said, "Now if you do your job." All right.
So that's your storage spot. And it fits right. Like you were asking about putting in a case,
Yep.
I would say that fit all in. So the other thing about arrow, the last one, I don't know if you paid any attention to this, but your very last arrow in your quiver comes straight back.
Mhm.
This one comes straight back. So what I would suggest for you, and this is just a very simple thought, but it is going to be a huge advantage to you right now. So if you're looking out ahead at the deer, you know, you're trying to get to another arrow right here, it makes tons of sense to shoot this arrow first. So now reach in there and grab that. See how much space you got? Even with
Yep.
gloves on, you'll be able to get your hand in there.
Right.
So I would shoot this arrow first out of the bow, like for hunting
And this
purposes.
is just your second one.
You
and it's
snatch
just-
it and get it in there and make it go off.
Makes sense.
But that's why they did that. That's why they made that one come straight back, is for that real quick follow-up shot.
No, that's smart. I should have been doing that with my other one. I mean, I think the other one was built that way, and I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, all good tips. Cool.
Together, not completely finished, but we still got some work for me and Dad to do. But this is the hat I got, I believe it was 5 years ago with my other bow, and this is the new one we got today for the Redworks bow. And they used to be the same color. So you know that I definitely got my use out of this one, and corresponds with the bow. So hopefully in a couple of years this one will be this color, and my bow will be kind of worn out. So
Yeah, we're excited about it, and I appreciate you guys taking the time.
We
not
got
only
one more for
today,
you
but
too.
every
There you go,
day.
dear.
Oh wow!
there's the
Look at
Matthews
that.
hat. Look at that.
To help us be better at what we enjoy doing so much. And you know, I was going to brag on your son and brag on Keeler for just a minute. That I think, you know, having the opportunity to spend the time in the outdoors with our, you know, children. We about started crying about it, talking about it
Yeah.
earlier. But nothing better than that. And in that hat, he killed his personal best, biggest buck he's ever killed, and most exciting story I'm sure he's ever had related to hunting in his life. So we're looking to get the same return out of this new one. Get some blood on that thing
Right.
this fall.
So you might have to do something like I do. So when I mount a deer, I generally mount if it's a book quality deer, well, I put the bows with them. So you can see the one up there and one in my office and all. And
That's what I'm gonna do with my other one. I'm gonna put it with my. I
With your
killed
deer.
3 deer with that one, and so I'm gonna put that with those 3 deer. And
The hat may need to be retired.
yeah, I think I'm gonna
so
retire the hat too with
put
it,
it with
probably.
the deer. Put it on top. Give me a little
Right,
crown.
right.
So we're
I'll put
going
on my
to give you,
smallest
we're going to
deer.
give you a little report. You know, it looks like that on our first shootout that the Matthews was victorious for the day. You know, I would say on the one shot wonder, but that might have just been the one shot. So we're going to give you a report here in about a week, and see how it turns out.
Well, that's the one that matters, right?
Right,
One shot,
One.
yeah.
You only get one
You
shot.
get one.
Your daddy beat you?
I'll continue to
By
do
one
it.
shot?
You got
That's in
me.
a lifetime.
Wow. All that trash?
Right.
He said I hadn't missed the X yet.
Yeah.
Isn't that what he said?
That's
Yeah.
exactly what he said.
Moment of
That's what
truth.
I said.
Colby,
Colby.
it gets you every time.
What you
don't
got
it,
to say
buddy?
about it?
I'm right there with him. Lose that one arrow.
I hear you. I got you. Well, Kobe, we're pulling for you, man, this summer, and I know you got it. So it's just a matter of, hey, being calm, being at peace with what you're doing, enjoying the moment. You know, it's all meant to be. It'll come together. It's kind of like chasing that big buck. You know, you gotta put yourself in the right place to have the opportunity on that thing, and then, hey, do your best, forget the rest. Leave it to God, because you're gonna come out of it a winner either way. No doubt about it. But I appreciate you going and representing our hometown. I was born in Valdosta, Georgia, right up here, right up the street. So we're
That's
excited
awesome.
to be a part of this and be a partner with Life Outdoors, and look forward to the season coming up. And we'll stick right in there with you guys. So one thing I would say, as we have an audience, is take the time and opportunity. If you're locally, if you're here within an hour or two of Life Outdoors, please come and stop in and see Jeremie, his wife Stephanie, and their family. They do a great job of not only setup, but they really go out of their way to give you a lot of little small pointers that can make all the difference in your hunt for this year. You can certainly order things from them and look them up online, but these guys are all about the quality service. You really want to get to know them, you really want to get the full effect, you got to come in here to the store in person and to really get your full value out of any purchase. But I'm sure at any point, if you got questions, things that you have that maybe you've been pondering, maybe you're like me, okay, I've been hunting for 40 years. Still, every time I come in here, I learn something new, as small as it may be, and it may be about new technology or new ways to be more accurate and save energy through the season. But this year we're going after the big boys, so stay tuned, and we'll let you know how it turns out. Thanks for following us on social.